Remember, you were asked, what skin color do you want? Do you remember which one you said?
Yeah, that one.
Which one?
This one.
Why do you want that skin color?
Because I don't know. I don't know.
Not sure? What do you think of that skin color?
Well, it looks kind of whitish, and that's all I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Why do you want that skin color?
Because it looks lighter than this kind, because this looks a lot like that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't like the way brown looks, because the way brown looks really nasty for some reason, but I don't know what reason. That's all.
So you think it looks nasty?
Well, not really, but sometimes.
Sometimes. And Brielle, they asked what color adults don't like. Do you remember what you said? Which one? That's right, that's what you said. Why do you think adults don't like that color?
Dark.
Dark. And you think adults don't like dark?
Maybe some adults do, but maybe some of them don't.
Hmm.
Hi, my name is Oladapo Olajumoke. I've been in America for the past 3 years now, and a particular question has crossed my mind several times. What is the issue with race in America? To find this out, I went to interview some people that I know around campus, and decided to make a video. So here it is. What is the issue of race in America? I'm here today with the president of the Kappa Alpha Order, Washington College, Chestertown, Maryland, Gregory Lee, and I'm just going to ask him a few questions about, what is the issue with race in America? Greg, do you feel that there is an issue with race in America?
I think that there is an issue with race, but I think our country and our generation are sort of heading in the right direction, or making improvements on issues that are deeply integrated into how our country is built and made.
That's very good. Another question is, what is the culture of stereotypes, and why do they limit someone from acting or behaving in the way they want to be?
I think that the culture of stereotypes in this time is sort of everybody has their own stereotype to live up to, and that can be very dangerous for an individual because not everybody is the same person. I mean, no two people are the same person, and especially just because of the way you look or where you're from, that does not make you fall into a certain stereotype. And stereotypes are dangerous and harmful because they prevent people from truly acting the way that they want to act, and it puts pressure on them to act in a certain way or to follow a certain guideline for their life or something of that nature, but it really pressures them to be somebody that they might not necessarily be.
What are stereotypes, and are these stereotypes true?
I would say a stereotype is an uneducated generalization about a group of people based on physical characteristics or ethnic background or locational background. I would say almost by definition a stereotype would not be true, because my understanding is that stereotypes are formed without any knowledge of what a person actually is or what that person really how they really act, as opposed to a generalization, which might be something you come up with based on experience. But I think a stereotype, as far as I know, is almost not true by definition, or at least expected not to be true.
Yeah. That's it. One more question I have for you, Greg, just to end this interview. Why is it that the lower class category in America is made up of racially diverse people? Why do you think that is?
I think this is an issue that goes back to history and what has happened in the past 200, 300 years of the country. I think events that far or that long ago are still affecting the cities and families, and different racially diverse groups of people are still being held back, and I don't know if I would say suffering, but definitely being held back based on those events that happened so long ago. And I think it's something that is you're good, go ahead. Something that's part of our country, unfortunately, and it's something that we as a whole are hopefully trying to improve and make better.
All right. Thank you very much for your input into this interview, Greg. And I acknowledge,
And then which was the ugly child?
That one.
And why was he the ugly child?
He was the ugly child because he was the ugly one because when he would try to go to school, sometimes all the white kids would make fun of him
Why were they making fun of him?
because of the color of his skin.
Does that happen sometimes?
Not now, but back then it did.
Back in the old days?
hmm
Why did that happen back then?
Because I think the people in the schools didn't think that like the black kids should get education like the white kids did.
Mm-hmm. Are there now? Do you see differences now between black kids and white kids?
No.
No. Do you think some kids do see differences?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, maybe some people still think that blacks are ugly and whites are nice and handsome.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they think that?
Because of what they heard, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think things have changed? You were saying that in the older days, people with different skin colors were treated differently.
Because Martin Luther King Jr., I think, helped make black and white go to the same schools and bathrooms.
Mm-hmm. And you think that changed people's opinions?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm here today with my good friends Colin Rainey and Peter Wagner. They're here to answer some questions about what are some of the issues with race in America. I'll first start off with Colin Rainey. My first question to you, Colin, is, are stereotypes true? And if so, why do they have to be negative?
Well, I believe that every person in this, not only in this nation but in other countries, stereotypes a person almost immediately right when they see them, on race, just what they're wearing, and anything of that nature. So yes, they are true. Why do they have to be negative? Because I think automatically if they don't have the same stereotype as them, I think they associate it with negativeness. Yeah, I think because people assimilate with similar people, that it's almost negative to see someone different than yourself.
Okay. It's a good response. Another question I have for you. I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this question fully, but I had this on my mind, and I was wondering, why do you feel that it's hard for black people to break into predominantly white communities?
Yeah, I mean, this all goes back to stereotypes and the fact that people assimilate with similar people, and I believe it's hard for a black person to break into a predominantly white community.
Could you give any reasons?
Specifically?
Not specific, like in general. Like, could you give any general, like, reasons? Could it be maybe due to some of these stereotypes? That,
It could be due to some of these stereotypes.
So these stereotypes basically, negate people's attitude towards people?
Absolutely.
Peter, how do you feel about this question? Why do you think it's hard for black people to break into predominantly white communities?
I think people are generally more comfortable with people of the same race, and I mean, I feel like it could go vice versa for a white person breaking into a black community. I mean, people are just more comfortable naturally with people that are like them. Whether that's good or bad, it's just the way some people are.
Good responses. Good responses. Another question I have for both of you is, why is it that the lower class in America consists of racially diverse people? Mostly racially diverse people. It's not just racially diverse, but mostly. Why do you think that is? I'll start off with you, Colin.
And Pete, do you have anything? Start it off.
Like, what exactly do you mean by racially diverse?
For example, someone who's an African American or someone who is like second generation Spanish, like born from Mexico, or someone who's an immigrant but a second generation where their parents have stayed in America, but maybe due to some, I don't know, language barriers or educational barriers, they're not able to access the job markets. Why are these people still stuck in that rut?
Well, I mean, I think it's just that. I think it's completely the language barriers. And I mean, most of those people, their parents came over for like the American dream, and just because they might have an easier time than their parents, they still might not be able to get highly sought after jobs. And I mean, I'm guessing that most of those people will probably be some of the first people in their families to get educations, and I mean, it's tough.
Colin, do you have a response?
Well, for I mean, we're talking about just. I mean, just Pete just kind of covered everything. You want to talk about like a specific?
No, it's just like a generalization of everything, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough for people that are racially diverse that come into here in the lower class to break out of that stigma. I mean, once you're in that, it's hard to. Once you're in that certain area, it's hard to get that higher education that maybe people in the middle class or upper class are offered that lead them into this better job and lead them to getting more money. So it's tough for people like that to get this better education and get to those opportunities that these other people have.
And do you think that that this stems down to them being maybe stereotyped in like a job application or an interview, or the way they come across to people as not being from their community? Do you think that affects them in any way? Do you think their race affects them?
During an interview?
Yeah, or like during...
I think absolutely. I think interviewers stereotype. It's an unfair process. I mean, that's just the way it's just the way it works, almost.
Okay. I have one more question for you guys to end this interview. A predominant figure of the NRA, Charlton Heston, made a comment that the reason why America is so violent today is because of how racially diverse it is. What are your views on that? And do you believe that that's what's causing it, or do you believe that it goes deeper than it just being racially diverse?
I personally believe it goes deeper than being racially diverse. I mean, yeah, I mean, America's violent. I mean, there's just violent people out there, and that's just the way it works. But I don't think it always stems from one person of one race killing another person of another race.
Do you have any response to this, Peter?
I mean, that's a very vague question. I mean, I'd say, if anything, maybe you could blame that on anything. You could say gun culture. I mean, there's a ton of responses you can have, but they're all going to be pretty vague to answer that.
Do you think fear is also part of it as well? The reason why there's so much violence? People being afraid of the unknown? Why they equip themselves with so many guns and...
Or are you saying that there's a correlation between how many guns you have and how violent you are?
No, just some people have stemmed some of the violence like from guns and shootings to like fear, how the media portrays fear on the news. There's another killing between two gangs, maybe predominantly race. Right,
I think fear always plays a factor. Fear, obviously, I mean, that's why people have guns, is the fear of, possible thieves, possible robbers coming into their house, and it's just, yeah, I think fear definitely plays a factor.
Alright. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for your responses. They've been well noted, and I appreciate the time that you've taken out to give me this interview. Thank you very much. I'm here today with my good friend and fellow suite mate, Benjamin Perry Stone, to conduct an interview about what's the issue of race in America. The first question I pose to you, Ben, is what is the issue of race in America?
Well, the issue of race in America is that it's really a broad issue. There's
Yeah.
many issues amongst there's many races targeted, and there's many issues that have to do with, racism, and they're all really negative and bad, and I think they all deserve to be addressed and fixed.
Do you have some, ideas on how they could be fixed?
No. That's not one of the questions, Dappa.
Alright. Another question I have for you, Ben, is do you think stereotypes are true? And if so, why are most of them negative?
I believe most stereotypes come from some place of truth. Stereotypes by nature are generalizations of some sort of archetype or, specific, conjecture about a certain people's or group in general. And so these stereotypes very often come from a place of, maybe if not truth, they usually come from a place of observation. Something seen or believed at a time.
Okay.
And I mean, for sure, these are generalizations specifically. So stereotypes, while sometimes may come from a truth or from some observation that may seem true, they're certainly not indicative of an entire group.
Very good, Ben.
And you want the negative? Why the negative?
Yeah, like, why are most of them negative? Like,
Why most of these stereotypes are negative is a very interesting question. And I believe it's one that's really worth diving into, because the interesting thing to me is why they aren't positive, not the reverse. Why are they negative? Many stereotypes are blatantly negative. I mean, it's very easy to think of negative stereotypes. Things that are flat out mean, racist, discriminatory, derogatory. And these are kind of bad in their own rights for, inherently. But why are there so many stereotypes that are perceived as negative? You can take, for example, the idea that most Jewish people seem to be well off or know how to handle money. And this, in a lot of ways, can be taken as very negative. You could say, that there's many negative spin-offs to this idea. And why that is negative is an interesting point, because when you really get down to the root of it, what's being said is something that could be seen as very positive, of responsibility and, things along those lines. Similarly, you could look at stereotypes about maybe Asian people or people of Chinese or Japanese descent and say, why are they so smart, or they're so good at math, things like that. And these are obvious stereotypes in society, but they come from a place that really is more positive when you get down to the ideas of it. Why is it perceived negative to stereotype someone as capable in certain fields of academics? And that's very interesting. And I don't know exactly how that happens. It probably comes from a place of people see differences and they see generalizations, and the immediate reaction is to turn them negative, is to to feel excluded, is to want to make it uncool, or to make it bad, or to make the other thing that you're not a part of or don't feel that identifies you as something ill-perceived and negative.
Thank you very much for that response. And do you feel that these stereotypes also limit people into, striving for a better job or higher education or advancement in the workplace?
Stereotypes are inherently limiting. I think this boils down to environment. If you are brought up in an environment that is full of a perpetuating stereotype. If you on a daily basis encounter a stereotype, especially ones that are geared or aimed at you, you grow up and you learn and you react to that. It's just impossible not to. And so to have someone brought up in an environment in which this one stereotype, maybe as an example, is rampant throughout society, that stereotype, whether they feel it or not, will have an effect on that person, and it will likely cause them in some way to be limited. I mean, maybe not in the specific sense, but generally as an idea, as long as a stereotype exists and is perceived and seen and a part of someone's daily existence, then that stereotype will inherently alter the behavior of that person.
Thank you very much, Ben, for your responses. I really appreciate your inputs onto these interview questions I presented to you today. And I hope that we can talk again in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Not a problem.
So do you see different today? Is there a difference between a black person and a white person?
Not really. But some didn't change their opinion.
So do you see different today? Is there a difference between a black person and a white person?
Not really.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah. They're people. They're the same thing.